Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Israel Ministry of Tourism and Traveling, I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's biblical seminar. This event will last approximately an hour, and we will take up to 5 random questions at the end of the seminar. You can send your questions via the webinar script at the bottom of your screen, and we will randomly choose up to 5 questions that will be answered at the end of the lecture by Shahar. I would now like to introduce you to Josh Jones from Traveling to say a few words. Josh? You can unmute, Josh. Can you unmute?
Well,
you can't.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Needed to be unmuted by the host, I think.
Okay,
so.
Thank you.
Hi, so a very warm welcome to you all from Traveling. We're thrilled and delighted that you've registered and logged in for our second biblical webinar with Dr. Shahar Shilo. Today, Dr. Shilo will discuss in detail the discovery of the Roman road known as the Pilgrim Road in Jerusalem that runs from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. You will remember from reading the Gospel of John that it's at the Pool of Siloam that Jesus healed the blind man. In addition, this was a pool that was a purification pool where people would wash and cleanse themselves before heading up to the temple. It's almost certainly a road Jesus himself would have used over the 3 holy feasts of Passover, Pentecost, and Tabernacles. It was a biblical commandment for all the Jewish people that they should travel to Jerusalem over the 3 holy festivals for a temple sacrifice. It's also worth noting that tonight is the Jewish, it's the day of Tish B'Av, which is an annual day of mourning for Jews, which marks a number of disasters that has befallen the Jewish nation, most notably the destruction of both the temple, Solomon's temple, and also the second temple, of course, by the Roman Empire. So I think it's important that we should remember the Jewish people in our prayers at this time on what is a sad day for the Jewish people. I'll now hand you back over to Ron so that we can start the lecture.
Thank you very much indeed, Josh. Much appreciated. Having gained his MA in history and PhD in tourism and marketing management, Shahar was also head of the National Tour Guide course in Israel for 15 years and continues to teach as a senior lecturer. A certified licensed tour guide specializing in biblical history and archaeology, Shahar has guided groups in Israel for over 2 decades and continues to lecture in Israel. Shahar has also conducted lectures at universities, organizations, and tour guide schools around the world. Today, it is Shahar Shilo's hope that those who attend his seminars will be enriched by the new archaeological discoveries in Israel that have brought the world of the Bible alive to the people of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shahar Shilo. Shahar, you need to unmute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just need to know that you can actually see my shared presentation right now.
Yes, absolutely.
And let's, so we can make it on.
That's
Thank
better.
you very much. It's a pleasure being with some of you again. I can still identify some of the faces. So it's my pleasure and honor to try and give you an interesting short lecture again in Jerusalem regarding other aspects of Christ in Jerusalem and other aspects of, I would say, biblical history and biblical archaeology altogether, with some things that we've touched base at the last time. The last time we met, if I remember correctly, we've been discussing the trial of Jesus, new location of the trial of Jesus regarding new evidence from the museum of the Tower of David. This time we're going to touch base much more with the biblical city of David itself, which is where we are looking right now. Straight ahead of us at the footsteps of Temple Mount from the southern sides lies the biblical city of David, which is known as Siluan in Arabic, or Siloam, which is translated from Greek. If I may remind you, my friends, the Pool of Siloam, as you know it from the Bible, is actually mentioned in the book of Isaiah. And when the Bible was translated to Greek, first time ever, which was the year 284 BC, 284 BC, the Bible was translated from Hebrew to Greek in Egypt, as we know it under the name of Septuagint, the famous Septuagint, which is Septuaginta in ancient Greek. The word Shiloach in Hebrew was actually translated to Siloam, which mistranslated or mispronounced later on by Arab-speaking people as Siluan. But for those who are interested in the ancient language, my friend, you're actually looking right now at the peaceful picture of what we know as the Shiloach village, the village of Siloam, which is an ancient biblical name for this village, which is the city of David. The city of David was also named in the Bible as Kfar HaShiloach, which is the village of Shiloach. Shiloach, for those who are interested, is rooted from the ancient Hebrew word of sending the water which has been sent from the Gihon spring to the Pool of Siloam via the famous canal of Hezekiah, are called in Hebrew Shiloach, which is actually a verb of sending. So the word sending was not translated to Greek, but was just actually moved to Greek, and Shiloach became Siloam, Siloam became Siluan, and now you have a bit of Hebrew to begin our lecture with. So what are we looking at, my friends? We are going to salute right now and to commemorate some of our dear colleagues from the ancient UK, and excuse my French when I say ancient UK, because you're actually looking at Queen Victoria 150 years ago. She and the House of Lords have actually funded a new fund, which is known to be the PEF. The famous Palestine Exploration Fund was commemorated in order to actually search the land of the Bible for biblical evidence. And the idea of finding biblical evidence was extremely keen people in the UK at the time, which did belong to some of the famous Anglican and evangelical churches of the 19th century. I'm not going too deeply into the history of the PEF, but you should know that we in the Israeli Academy are paying, I would say, a huge tribute and a high respect to the people of the PEF, which actually are the founders of new archaeology and biblical history in Jerusalem. So we're paying tribute right now to Captain Charles Warren, the person in the middle of this picture, who is a very, very famous person. Lately, afterwards, if you do remember his history, my friends, when he demobilized from his service in Palestine, in ancient Israel, what he did was going back to London, and he was actually brought up to be the chief of the Scotland Yard, was in charge of capturing Jack the Ripper, which he never succeeded. But this was his job after resigning from his previous job as an engineer of the PEF, as an, I would say, early archaeologist, because when he did archaeology, actually archaeology was yet not a well-known science in the world. He actually practiced a new method which nobody knew at the time, which is 1867. But he is the first one to ever dig the biblical city of David. And this is why we're sharing his story right now, because I'm going to dive with you to the story of him looking for the biblical city of David in the wrong place. And this is where I'm taking you right now, to see Mount Zion. If you remember, for those of you who did attend my previous lecture, we have shown this picture, and we said that for nearly 2,000 years, pilgrims were actually pilgriming to the wrong site. When coming to the biblical city of David, my friends, if I showed you right now brochures of Thomas Cook from the 19th century, and the city of David was included in your tour in the 19th century, where did you actually visit? You visited the area which today is known to us as Mount Zion. This is not the biblical city of David. It was the allegedly mistaken city of David at the time, because at the time they did not really know where the biblical city of David is. Ask me how long, until a Scottish noted person, a distinguished scholar under the name of George Adam Smith, published his Book of Jerusalem in the year 1900. He was the first one to actually identify the biblical city of David in its current position, which is where you know it right now, south of Temple Mount, which is here. If I may show it to you, the biblical city of David actually migrated in 1900 after 1900 years of being in the wrong site. In a moment, I will explain why was it moved to the wrong site, but you need to understand that only since 1900 do we know that actually the biblical city of David, from the time of King David, and the place which will be later visited by Jesus in his time in the Pool of Siloam, which is down here, my friends, really where my cursor is moving right now at the bottom of this picture. But before we go there, this is the biblical city of David. This is Mount Zion, allegedly city of David. And I have enlarged for you, if you see right now, this church here, this whole territory, which is here. This is the cone here. You see the gray cone and the bell tower next to it. This is known to us today as Dormition Abbey. Dormition Abbey is a new German Catholic church belonging to the Benedictine order of monks next to Mount Zion. It's actually on the top of Mount Zion today. But again, this was allegedly 1900 years of pilgriming to the city of David. People came to this site thinking they're walking in the biblical city of David. Now, if I may show you, let's stay in this amazing period of the middle of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, when people were actually coming to look for great stories of the biblical times. Over 150 years of excavations are done in the city of David. If I may share with you, my friends, as far as we know, historians, biblical historians, this is the most excavated site upon earth. If you take the number of delegations and the size of this area, according to the small size of it, this is the most excavated site upon earth in the last 150 years. One of the famous delegations have left us a great movie, which was initiated, and I should say, was actually sourced from this delegation. You can read at the left side of the screen this amazing head page of the New York Times from May 5th, 1911. And I will share it with you. Gone with treasure that was Solomon's. Of course, they're talking about King Solomon. English party vanishes on a yacht after digging under the Mosque of Omar, said to have king's crown, also his ring and sword. Turkish government sends high officials to Jerusalem to investigate. Wow, no less than the king's sword, crown, and no less than his personal ring. If I may remind you, my friends, in ancient Christian mythology, in the well-known stories of the mid-ages, of the medieval times, these were three components known as three artifacts, which are showing and commemorating the wisdom of King Solomon. The crown was actually symbolizing wisdom. The ring itself was the attribute for his wealth, because on his on his finger, he had that ring, which he signed the contract with the Queen of Sheba, which is standing for his wealth. And the famous sword was actually the attribute for his not only wisdom, but justice, his righteousness, because it was meant to cut the baby in half, if you remember, when the two mothers were actually arguing about who owns that baby. So the sword, the ring, and the crown are three well-known artifacts symbolizing and attributing to the wisdom, righteousness, and justice, and of course, wealth of King Solomon, the most famous king, David's son. But before we go there, my friends, you should know that in 1981, a great movie came to the theater from that delegation. This party is actually the reason for the existence of the famous first Indiana Jones and the Riders of the Lost Ark. The famous Indiana Jones, which hit the screens at 1981, is actually coming out from this crazy delegation, which I will not share the whole story of this delegation right now. But if you are interested, go to a small alley in London next to Oxford Street. It is called Hind Mews 2. Hind Mews 2, which is coming from a small alley in Oxford Street in London. And I should urge you to go there, because this is the archive of the PEF, where you will find the interesting private diary of this specific archaeologist who actually made that delegation at the time. His name was Brownello Montague Parker. He was a British officer who actually carried out that delegation at the time. So what are we about to talk? We are going to show some findings, new findings related to the times of Jesus, which are going hand by hand with the Holy Bible, my friends, as we all know it. And this is me at your service in the biblical city of David. Before I'm taking you to the New Roman streets, if I may have you for a few appetizers to warm you up, just to warm you up before we get to the main course. This is the new, well-excavated, great Canaanite fortress, which we have uncovered in the biblical city of David in a long time excavation from 1995 all the way to 2015. 1995 to 2015, we have carried out a huge investigation, a huge research over the Canaanite fortress. But why is it interesting to you, my friends? Because we actually found the biblical grounds of the well-known meeting place of Melchizedek and Abraham. If I may remind you your Bible, and if I may remind you your Sunday church, every time you go to the church on Sunday, my friends, you pray under the name of Melchizedek. Why is this? Because in the 5th century, a famous Christian scholar under the name of Saint Augustine has declared that Melchizedek is no less than a prototype of Jesus Christ himself. I will say this again to make sure we all know that. And if you are interested, my friends, you should dive into your Christian books and learn about Saint Augustine, who lived in Hippo at the time, end of 4th, beginning of 5th centuries AD. And Saint Augustine, the famous Augustinus, who carried out over 300 books in his lifetime, all Christian theology. He was the most fruitful Christian theologist of his time. And this was the Byzantine early era. And he declared that what Melchizedek of the Bible did in the book of Genesis, chapter 14, is actually commemorating the first ever communion in the world to take place in Jerusalem. And when I say communion, my friends, I mean, of course, Mass. This is, if you are in a Catholic church, you'll call it a Mass. If it's a Protestant church, you may call it a communion, but it's actually derived from the same idea. When Jesus hands over the bread and the wine in the Last Supper room, my friends, he's giving tribute to what Melchizedek did 1800 years prior to his time. And this is the reason why St. Augustine says no less than this. When Melchizedek is hosting Abraham in the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verse 18, and he hands him over, they break bread together and they drink wine together. This is an unfamiliar ceremony in the Canaanite period, my friends. You should know, when you read the Bible thoroughly, you'll see that when Canaanites are hosting someone, they slaughter a lamb or a veal or calf. They don't serve wine and bread. Melchizedek does something else. Melchizedek is actually giving a unique, precious idea here to Abraham. He's feeding him with bread and wine only, and they make a ceremony and they drink it on the spring, which we know later on as the Gihon spring, in the valley of equilibrium, or the valley of Shaveh, the biblical valley of Shaveh. My friends, I'm urging you here, you should visit the city of David next time and ask your guide, when possible to get there again, to take you to the valley of Shaveh, to the meeting point of Melchizedek and Abraham, where the first communion ever took place upon the planet. And this is something we just found out lately in the year 2013 during the dig of this amazing Canaanite fortress from the times of Melchizedek. I'm moving on because these are only appetizers, friends. These are some ancient impressions bearing biblical names from the Bible, all with people who we know very well. These are 4 out of over 400 found in the biblical city of David. You need to understand when you walk in the biblical city of David, and I will take you to the Roman street in a minute, you're actually walking in the footsteps of prophets, kings, and whoever lived in the biblical times. And these are precious, precious impressions, which bears biblical names, which we know so well. Some of them are from the book of Jeremiah. And here you have Hezekiah on the left bottom side. You see Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, king of Judea. You're actually commemorating here the famous king who rebelled against the Assyrians in the times of Sennacherib. This is the king who lived in the times of Isaiah. So when Isaiah prophesies about the fourth coming of Jesus, if you remember, he's calling him Emmanuel, that is in the time of Hezekiah. When you learn Isaiah talking about the emerging of Jesus Christ, about the birth of Jesus Christ, who will be coming in the future under the name of Emmanuel, my friends, you're actually are talking about the time of King Hezekiah. And here you have an impression bearing his name found in the biblical city of David from the ruins of the Assyrian siege. I will move on because my aim is to get you to the Roman street, and this is the beginning of it. This is actually the Pool of Siloam. On the lower right side, you see a replica of how we believe it should have looked like in the times of Jesus. On the left side, you see a small piece, and let me show you with my cursor, if I may, on the upper left side of the pool here, my friends. This is actually the corner of a huge pool, which was this area here. If you take this replica here, and let me take my cursor to this area here, this would be the same corner of that huge pool, which is spread upon 3,000 square meters. 3,000 square meters, this is 3 dunams size of a pool. It was for cleansing, it was for ritual bath, and it was meant for drinking as well when not pilgriming to Jerusalem. So that's the Pool of Siloam. But if I may give you an idea here, my friends, let's start walking with Jesus hand by hand in the amazing pilgrim's route from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. But before we do that, let me remind you something interesting. So far, we've seen a few biblical, I would say, events. If you remember 2 Samuel chapter 5, 2 Samuel 5, and I should tell you, take notes here, my friends, because this is a great story for your next Sunday preaching. 2 Samuel chapter 5. The Jebusite king stands on the wall of city of David, and he declares to King David, young King David, who's standing outside with his troops, and he say, "Thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame." And David hated the blind and the lame. And David says to his people, and I quote on, "He who wants to conquer the Jebusite city shall touch the gutter and we will win." The gutter under the meaning of pipe. Okay, it's like a water pipe. Gutter by the meaning of a water pipe. And here we hear an interesting word that appears only twice in the Bible, my friends. As a biblical scholar, let me share it with you because I'm not sure you've ever touched base with this story. The word in Hebrew is called zinor. Z-I-N-O-R. Zinor. That's the Hebrew word for a gutter, for a pipe. It appears only 2 times in the whole Bible. In the whole Bible, 2 times it appears. One is 2 Samuel chapter 5. And the second place, it would be in the book of Psalms chapter 42. In the chapter 42, and these two times it would mean a thing, something to move water from one side to another. Actually, something that water flows through. That's the idea of tzino in the Bible. But it only appears twice. It's a very rare word. And David is using it to tell his people to touch the gutter if they want to win over the city. But I'm taking you back to something extremely interesting. The Jebusite king mocks young King David by telling him, you cannot enter my city until you address an issue. The issue is you need to remove the blind and the lame. Did you ever pay attention, my friends, to what Jesus does when he comes to Jerusalem? Ask yourself this, and I'm stopping for a minute to give you a riddle, if I may. How many miracles would Jesus perform in the Galilee? Try to count down in your memory, try to memorize, and you shall see that in the Galilee, if you really want to count down, you'll find over 30 different miracles conducted by Jesus when he's doing his ministry in the Galilee. We have dozens of miracles taking place in the Galilee, but I'm urging you for something interesting. How many miracles would Jesus conduct all over Jerusalem in his whole lifetime with us upon earth? 33 years Jesus has his ministry upon earth before he's being crucified. How many miracles would he conduct in that time, in his lifetime in Jerusalem? The answer, my friend, is quite interesting. 2. Just 2 miracles. Let me leave aside the fixing of the ear of the Roman soldier, which he did in the place which we know as Gethsemane. Excuse me for telling you, my friends, today Gethsemane is a part of Jerusalem. In Jesus' times, it is not a part of Jerusalem. It is beyond the Kidron Valley. It is a part of the Mount of Olives. So how many miracles does he do in all over Jerusalem? 2 miracles only. One of them is mentioned in John 5. John 5, that's the miracle of the healing of the disabled in the pools of Bethesda. And the second one is the healing of the blind man in the Pool of Siloam, which is mentioned in John 9, verses 7 and 8. So let me ask you this. Do you have an idea? Look at the names of the miracles, my friends. It's amazing. 1 millennium has passed away from David to Jesus. 1 millennium exactly, 1,000 years from the forefather, King David, to his future grandson, Jesus Christ. 1,000 years passes away and he addresses the same issue when he enters Jerusalem. He touches base with the blind and the lame, like his forefather did in the second book of Samuel chapter 5. David is mocked by the Jebusite king who tells him, "Thou shalt not come into my city until you remove the blind and the lame." Jesus enters Jerusalem and he touches base by healing the blind and the lame. And this is an interesting notion. It's a theological idea that explains how come when Jerusalem is so distinguished, so notified, so interesting and so important. Jerusalem is the Pentecost, my friend. Jerusalem is the crucifixion. Jerusalem is the resurrection. Jerusalem is the crying over the temple. Jerusalem has every importance possible in the New Testament, and yet it only gets 2 miracles, unlike the Galilee that gets dozens of them. The only way one can understand why does Jerusalem get only 2 miracles is to read the complete Bible with the book of Genesis in the beginning and the second book of Samuel and the whole Jewish Bible and Christian Bible as we know it starts in Genesis and ends in Revelations. That's the only way one can figure out why is Jesus performing only 2 miracles when coming to Jerusalem. And I would stop my argument here because I want to share with you much more than that. If I may, I want to go furthermore from the Pool of Siloam to show you the Roman amazing street leading from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, my friends. You're looking right now at those unique stairs. This is a staircase that starts in the Pool of Siloam, and it actually carries you all the way through today to Temple Mount. One can actually walk 780 meters long street today from the Pool of Siloam, following Jesus on the pilgrim's route from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, as people did 2,000 years ago when Jesus was walking it. And here, if I may show you, it's a replica actually. It's like a drawings here. You can see the Pool of Siloam. Sorry, that's the Pool of Siloam here, and this is the street, the Roman street, which we have uncovered from the year 2004, and we still carry on the excavations in this area right now, moving up to Temple Mount. But now you can actually walk it all the way through to Temple Mount. This is a new picture taken from the ongoing excavation. This area, my friends, is yet under ongoing excavations. It's yet not to be visited by groups. It's not open to the public. It's only on an excavation, but you get new pictures given to me from that street right now. And another, it's all underground, of course. You need to go underground. You see the rails of metal here holding huge amounts of soil above your heads, because you're actually moving underground in ancient Jerusalem. There's another good picture of that same street. Look at the Roman pavements. These huge paved pieces of stone are actually lying on top of the drainage systems, which one can move inside them. In those drainage systems, we found huge amounts of evidence for the existence of the Jewish rebels in the year 70 AD. Let me remind you, when the Romans are taking over Jerusalem, the Jews are fleeing away underground, and they move into those drainage systems, such as this one here. If I may show it to you, look at the drainage system here, which is lighted up in this picture. They lived in those drainage systems for a whole month, from the time of Tisha B'Av, when the temple fell, all the way to Chet Be'elul, which is a month afterwards, when the whole Jewish quarter fell down and no rebels were actually left alive. So those who were found in those drainage systems were taken outside and moved away by smoke. They smoked them outside, so says Josephus Flavius for that story. So this is what you see here. Here are the mentioning of what I gave you before. From David to Jesus. Again, I'm reminding you because you have a beautiful idea to speak about on your next preaching for your, congregations. You have second book of Samuel. David captures the fortress of Zion and calls it the city of David. This is the place where the Jebusite king mocks him and tells him, "Thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame." And these are the two mentioning of the two very important and famous miracles conducted by Jesus Christ within Jerusalem. These are the only miracles Jesus would perform in Jerusalem, my friends. When you go when you go up this beautiful tunnel, you will see the Herodian tunnel, which leads you all the way to the western wall. I believe you know it also under the name of what is known as the Wailing Wall. The Wailing Wall is actually commemorating today. This evening, which we have started a few hours ago, is actually the 9th of the Jewish month of Ab, which is the commemoration of the fallen of the Jewish temple. So when you talk about the Wailing Wall, why do Jews come to cry over that wall? Because that's the last relic of this temple. And this is what you're looking at right now. You're actually looking at the bottom right picture, my friends. Bottom picture here. These are stones from the western wall. These are the tunnels one can actually walk from the Pool of Siloam all the way up to Temple Mount. If you go up that street, it will lead you eventually to those famous staircases here, which are the southern steps to the temple that Jesus actually came to when he came to the Temple Mount. This is where every Christian group goes when visiting Jerusalem. There's not even one Christian group that would miss the option of moving upon those stairs. You know why, my friends? Because these are the actual stairs one can show you from Jesus' times. Let me be very specific and very strict about that as a historian. Everywhere else which we can take you in Jerusalem, friends, are remains from either the Roman period of the late Roman period, that's 2nd century AD, or Byzantine period. That would be the Via Dolorosa, for instance. These are not remains from the times of Jesus. The only place that you can actually walk in the footsteps of Jesus upon the same pavement he walked on his time, which is Herodian time, is the way leading from the Pool of Siloam, this whole trip which we did together right now, until those magnificent stairs on the southern slope of Temple Mount, which is right here. If I would have taken you there 2,000 years ago, it would have looked like what you see on the right upper side of the picture. On the right upper side of the screen right now, you see an arch, a huge arch, which was once the intersection leading into Temple Mount. What else did we find here before I'm done with my lecture and we can give some question times? We also found a beautiful golden bell, which is known to be the high priest's golden bell from his robe. Let me remind you, in the book of Exodus, we're told that the high priest wore a robe, a long coat, was surrounded by 72 golden bells and pomegranates. Bells and pomegranates, which actually was a riddle for us. What do they mean, pomegranates? Because pomegranates usually in Jewish culture are decorating Torah books. The famous biblical books made of, parchment are usually tied up with a silver metal thing, which on top of them, we usually use pomegranates, shaped silver pomegranates, to decorate it. But we don't use it for the coat of the high priest. But the Bible is very specific about it. So when my friend Eli Shukron, the archaeologist who found that beautiful bell, when he found it, he took it to his dentist and he went to make an x-ray because he wanted to see what's inside. So when the x-ray came out, they were shocked, amazed. The small artifact within that bell, which is the tongue that actually moves and makes the noise of the ding dong, is a pure masterpiece of gold made of a pomegranate gold. It's a gilded pomegranate, which is standing inside this beautiful bell, which is size is about the size of my small finger. That's the whole size of this bell. You should search for the other 71. We only found one so far. So 71 are still waiting for you underground somewhere in the biblical city of David. Another very, very famous finding, which we find all the time in this specific Roman road, are the half a shekel silver coin minted in Tyre. These are very famous coins, which every Jewish man in the times of Jesus Christ, every Jewish man when coming to the Temple Mount, must have carried such a coin in his pocket. Why? Because that is the annual tax. You need to bring that to the Temple Mount once a year when you pilgrim in one of those 3 famous holidays. So Jesus must have carried such coins in his pocket when going up that beautiful pilgrim's route. And if I may finish up and wrap up my whole lecture, let me give it to you this way, my friends. This is still an ongoing excavation. I'm giving to you right now some information which is, I would say, fresh and hot from the oven, because this is still going to be about a 2.5 years of excavations of this amazing Roman Jesus Christ times road. This road, when it will be open, will enable you to walk what we've done so far, only us, the excavators and the researchers, but it will be able to be walked, all the way from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. It is approximately 15 to 20 minutes walk, starting in the Pool of Siloam and going on a steep uphill in this amazing Roman street, all staircases. This is all stairs because you need to come up from a certain altitude, which is approximately 600 above sea level, all the way up to 740 above sea level, which is the plateau, the plain of Temple Mount, where the water would have come to Temple Mount itself. So if I may share with you the blessing that I wrote for you here, may you all be blessed by the Lord and with hopes for a better day soon, because COVID-19 is not here forever, you know. It's a visitor upon earth. Eventually it will vanish. So thank you very much for listening, and I will hand over to Sharon. So Sharon, if you're interested in joining up, I believe it's your time for taking questions, or Ron's.
Thank you, Sharon. Sorry, can you unmute? Thank
Yeah,
you.
hello. Yeah, I was just following the questions. Let's see. Thank you, Shahar. Just let me. Okay. When are the current ongoing excavations likely to be completed by, and when might those areas be open for tourist groups to explore?
So the good news, it's ongoing. Not even a day has stopped, even when COVID-19 hit Israel on the second wave right now. So approximately 50 people are still working underground on a daily basis, friends. And in about 2.5 years' time, they will finish it up and open it to the public. But if you are interested when coming to Israel, and I've done that many times with unique groups, special groups, you just need to ask for a unique permission to go under into that Roman street. Even right now, it is possible. Only usually not all the groups are aware of that, you know, possibility. So nobody's there asking for it. Because it's an ongoing excavation, it's not yet ready for, you know, public to visit. But you can visit it right now and even enjoy looking at the excavation rolling right now.
Just tell me if I'm repeating the sum of your answer. Can we visit part of that ancient road today? Okay.
So yes, you can in 2 different places, Sharon. Let me just be very clear about it. You can enter in the Pool of Siloam and walk the tunnel, but in the middle of the tunnel, we have a metal big door, which is locked. But if you make a unique request and you ask for permission, from that door, you can actually enter the street itself, go look at it, see it, get an explanation, and come back to the tunnel and continue up via the tunnel all the way to Temple Mount. Yes, it can be done right now.
Okay. Another question is there a possibility you can show us on the map both locations, City of David and where the initial thought location, and also Chizkiah's tunnel?
For that, I will need to share my screen again. If
it means that I need to stop share. Here it is.
Just for a second. Yes. Thank you very much.
You can see in the chat exactly.
Let me take you back to the map, or it's even better to see the aerial photo that I have. It would be better for that, I believe. It's going to be easier from here. What you're looking at right now is a good aerial photo taken from a chopper of the City of David, my friends, which is surrounded by this ellipse here. And that's very easy to understand. Hezekiah's tunnel starts right here where my cursor is right now, on the right side of the elliptic red circle, right here. And you come out here in the Pool of Siloam, underground. You walk under here for 533 meters and you come out here. That's Hezekiah's tunnel. The Roman street starts in this corner at the bottom here, and it goes up like this. If you see my cursor moving up right now, slowly, 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 you walk underground, of course, and you emerge eventually here in this corner, here, where the cursor is touching base right now with Temple Mount. You see it right now. So this is where the street leads you. It's like here, from here, all the way like this, and then moving here and emerging here. So it's a 780 meters hike underground.
Okay.
Ron, you have one more question?
Some of the steps had been uncovered many years ago, but had then been covered over. Why would they do that?
Well, welcome to Jerusalem. There are so many different reasons why we do that. It's amazing to understand that some of those amazing excavations have been done by English, delegations 130 years ago and 120 years ago, and people have covered them and built on it. Usually when they cover it, my friends, this was for unnecessary building, which was unauthorized. But eventually people live in Jerusalem. and whoever wanted to build the houses just did it without asking for, permission. So this is the reason why so many excavations were actually covered again.
Thank you very much indeed, Shahar.
Should I leave my share screen?
Thank
Oh,
you.
I just switched it again. Just
Oh, no problem. Okay.
thank
Okay,
you so
so
much.
before I give the closing remarks back to Josh Jones, I would like to say thank you very much to Sharon for your time. Shahar, thank you so much. I know it's 9 o'clock now in Israel. It's quite late, and your expertise and your knowledge is much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed on behalf of everyone. I'd now like to bring you back for closing remarks to Josh Jones, Tours for Christians or Traveling. Josh. Unmute. Sergio, can we unmute? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So yeah, as you can see on the screen there, we've got our contact details. So I'd just like to briefly remind you that if you didn't manage to catch the first webinar where Dr. Shahar Shilo talks about the location of the trial of Jesus, then please contact me and I'd be happy to send you the link to the recording, which is on our YouTube channel. We do believe that tours will start to resume hopefully towards the end of this year. And so that being said, I'd encourage you to peruse at your own leisure the website, which is www.toursforchristians.com. Here you can view all the tours that we currently have on offer, including the full day-to-day itineraries and all the information you may require. Group travel to the Holy Land has many benefits for you and your church. I'll just name a couple quickly. Firstly, it will enable you to understand your Bible and develop your knowledge and grow in your faith, as you literally are bringing the Bible to life when you visit the Holy Land. And secondly, when you go on a group tour, one of the really lovely things is that you get to really bond with one another, all your friends from church. You're spending incredible experiences together, sharing amazing times, and it's a real lovely thing to be able to share with one another and get to know people more personally, something that you don't often get to do on a Sunday in church, where you only speak maybe for 5 to 10 minutes to one another. The tour guides are extremely fantastic. They're knowledgeable, and they can be very funny, and they're excellent to be around. I really believe if you visit the Holy Land, if you haven't been before, it will be a life-changing experience for you. So I really encourage you to do that. If you're contemplating leading a group tour yourself, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and I can certainly discuss that further with you. And finally, I'd appreciate any feedback from today's webinar. If you've enjoyed it, please let me know. And may I just say thank you for your time. God bless you all.
Thank you very much indeed, Josh. Much appreciated. Thank you, Dr. Shahar. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Josh. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Have a good evening.